Greetings everybody, this is Barry from H&W Machine Repair here today. And today's project we're going to be reassembling a 2 horsepower Bridgeport motor for a variable speed head. So you can see I have all my parts laid out. We have our winding, a motor rotor shaft, we've got the bearings, all of our covers, caps, and screws. Now this was, if you watched the disassembly video, this is the motor that was a 2 horsepower for a CNC, and we're going to turn this into a standard 2 horsepower for your regular mill. So let's get started with the motor shaft. So we have the motor shaft and rotor assembly, and then the 2 bearings, the lower and the upper. Let's go ahead and get those put on and we'll get started here. Slide your bearing up on there, and you'll see where it gets up to the ridge. That's where you'll be pressing on from. Down, feet. Slide your upper bearing on, flip it over. Now, you want to press on the inner race, not on the whole bearing. Okay, we have the bearings on. Next we're going to do is we're going to put the bottom cover and put the motor rotor into the bottom cover. Take your bottom cover. Put it back in your press. Bearing on it. Set it, make sure you're going down straight. Alright, now we have the motor rotor into your bottom cover. We will go back over to the assembly area. Our next part to go on is going to be our winding. This is, and you notice how it's setting sideways. I said in the disassembly, you always leave the setting on the side. You do not want to set it on either sides that can actually hit the wires. So, pick it up, and you'll see the wires. They're going to go off. When you're looking at it this way, they will be off on the left side, right over the left side bolt. Okay, you're going to go down. Now, one of the things is when you're going down, there are holes in the top of this, and you have to line them up with their hole right there. Let me shine a little flashlight down there if we need to. And there's 4 of them. So I always line up one of them, make sure it's lined up, and then the first thing that I do before I go any further is I take one of the bolts, put it down through. Now, you see this little washer? Make sure it doesn't fall down in there. Put it down through and make sure that it's starting so I know that I'm in proper alignment. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is, you notice when I tore this apart, this had like a masking tape. It's all old and brittle. I like to have a little bit of protection, so I take a little bit of tape, electrical tape, and wrap it around there. And all this is going to do is protect this edge as it folds over and goes down there, down the road. Okay, next we're going to put in the top bearing cap. Now, again, if you remember the disassembly, I said be very careful if you have a spacer. This one actually has 2 spacers that are together. Put those in first. And then what I do is I take this a little bit of grease and just put on the inside. And all this grease is to do is to hold my wavy washer in place. It's not doing anything else. Take your wavy washer, slide it in, and now you see how it's not going to come out when I do that. Because put it over your motor like this, and then take your wires and run them through the little slot. There you go. And you see this got kind of a little bit of an edge, so try not to scrape on the wires more than you have to. All right. go down, you're gonna go down on it, and there you go. So you're on. Now, this is the point where we are going to put our 4 bolts in to tighten it down. So you want to find your little spot where you see my hole's not around, so you go till you get to the hole. Sometimes you need a flashlight. Right there, all right. Down. And just make sure it's started and do each one and make sure they're started. Okay, once you know they're all started, take your nut driver. Again, this is the 5/16. Just go down and snug. I usually do the opposite sides first. And as I'm doing this, I'm usually making sure I'm spinning okay there. Done. Again, I just like to make sure, yep, spins nice and smooth. Okay, our next part is the main outside cover. And again, you notice this one, normally your tag would be right here. Make sure you put your tag towards the front. Again, this was that CNC motor, so I'm gonna have to reattach the tag when I get done. So just run your wires through the hole, should have the rubber grommet in it, or rubber spacer. And go down over the top, kind of make sure you go down one of the slots. Okay, now, this is where it gets tricky. You gotta make sure each one of these, you can get to these threads. For some reason, when these things are made, you just gotta usually do a little bit of manipulation. All right, this one's actually in really good shape. Take a rubber mallet, just kind of tap it down in place. Okay. The next is this aluminum ring, or steel ring. Same thing, you want to make sure when you put this on, you line up all the holes. Okay. Push it on down. Let's get close there. All right, now, our next step is going to be reinstalling the 4 screws. Now, when I rebuild a head here, I always replace the screws, always replace the outside rubber grommets. Now, the reason that I only replace the outer one and not the inner one is because the inner one is, number one, not seen, and number two, if you put 2 brand new ones on, it actually makes it a little difficult sometimes to get your top cover on. Go. The outers. Take your spacers off. Now I just take the old ones off. Put the old one on. And sometimes it's just as easy to just use your little power screwdriver. You want to get it up near the top, about right in there. You want to leave space that you can put your cover on. And put your spacer on. We're going to go into our... Go on just a few threads. You just want to make sure you're on. Then we're going to do the same thing for the rest of these. Okay, we now have the cover on. The 4 screws in. Next is going on is the fan. Fan, you see there's a keyway. And the fan, this has a keyway. All this does is you tap it on with a rubber mallet. Once you get it on, give it a spin, make sure everything's quiet. Okay, now we're down to the top cap. And this is where I was talking about. We want to make sure when you put this on, you're between the 2 sets of rubber washers. So Sometimes you got to give it a little pull out, something like that. So there we go. Now just snug this up. Okay, make sure it's on tight. Again, give it a spin. Hear that? That means I have my cover on just a hair too high. So we're gonna, and that's not hard to do. Just take your rubber mallet. Okay, there we go. We have it together. Again, the front cover would be here if you were putting it together a normal one. Now you have your side cover here. I will go get it real quick. Okay, you have your side cover. They go on with the 2 hex bolts. And you will be using your 7/16 nut driver. Now I know I had this comment before last time I had a Band-Aid or something on. Well, this time I did not cut my finger at work. I actually did this at home, working on something at home, so fear not, I have not maimed myself. Okay, side cover is on. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and hook this thing up because I'm sure everyone wants to hear it run. So this one is actually wired 240. So let's get some wire nuts on here. All right, let's plug this baby in. 240. And let's see how she sounds. I still have a little bit of ring from my fan, so I'm going to actually lift this up a hair more. I'm kind of glad it happened on this one, so you get a demonstration of what happens occasionally. And if you get your, like if you lay this thing down after you've done this, and you get it back on the machine, there may be times you need to loosen the head and move this cap. So, try it again. There we go. And this is what you would like your 2 horsepower Bridgeport motor to sound like when you're done rebuilding it. So, again, thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, let us know. And as always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Talk to you later. Ready? Mm-hmm. Greetings, everybody. Barry from H&W Machine Repair here. Today's project, we're going to be reassembling a Bridgeport 1.5 horsepower variable speed motor. So you can see I've got the parts laid out here. Motor shaft and rotor, got my bearings, my cap, my motor covers, bottom, my fan, top cap, top cover, and the main housing. And obviously our assorted nuts and bolts that we will need. First step is going to be we're going to put the bearings on the motor shaft. So let's walk over the arbor press. Bottom bearing on, gets up to your flange here. Work a little tighter, just stick it down in here. Slide the top bearing on. Always want to hit on the inner race of the bearing, not on the outer race when you're tightening one on. Alrighty, next step we are going to put on our bottom, put the motor rotor assembly onto the bottom cover. So let's grab our bottom cover. And if I'm calling anything wrong, the correct part number will be on the bottom of the page. All right, same thing, put it on. You're pressing down, you want to make sure it's straight. Okay. Now, on the 1.5 horse, you'll have some that had a bottom plate on here. When you put this back together, it's not necessary to put that bottom plate on. The newer versions of this motor don't have it. It was just something they did. You can put it back on if you wish, but we never do here. Okay, now we are back up here. We are ready to put our motor winding on. This is one we actually just had rewound. Now, 1.5 horses are fun. Now, when you put this on, be careful. You want to go right down. You don't want to be doing a lot of rubbing or anything. Now, you're going to want your wires come out again right over the left side mounting hole. The 1.5 horses is tricky because you see there are little screws all around there. So you have 8 of them, and they're going to go down between the fins. So you need to find the happy spot where they all will fit. That one works, 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 that one works. Okay, all right, this is our spot right here. So as I did on the last one, we're gonna put a little bit of electrical tape just around these wires so that when they lay down in here, they're not rubbing on any of the metal or anything. And okay, our next step again is our top plate. And as I stated on the 1.5 horses, sometimes there's extra spacers. This one did not have one. Take a little bit of grease. Again, this is not to do anything other than to hold our wavy washer in place. Put the wavy washer in, and now you can see you can turn it upside down and won't fall out. Now this is all being brand new rewound. All the wires are loose. It's got metal tabs on it. So make sure you get all the wires through. Okay, see we got our cap on. After I struggled with wires for a couple minutes, but we got them on. Next, we're going to put the four larger bolts go in. So they go through the holes and down to where they thread on. You see it in there. These are the easy ones, by the way. And we are using our, I'll look again, 7/16, nut driver. Make sure you're spinning okay. Okay. Next, we put on the outer cover. Okay. Now this is where the 1.5 horses gets to be a little troublesome, because this is your top cap. And you see these 4 holes. Well, they're going to have to go down into the ribs where the 4 holes are around here. So you find the one that matches where you can see down through. The other thing about this fun cap is you notice how this thing never fits on there quite right. So, and if you dealt with one of these, you understand. So now we're to the 4 smaller screws. Same thing, you want to get them in there, and you're doing this completely blind. So this is sometimes a chore. Some people will take a threaded rod and put them in so that they get it lined up. I just generally find the spot and go for it. Okay, now we have the 4 bolts down. One thing you want to do, because this cap can tip a lot, is just take like a scale, kind of double check and make sure you're close to the same place everywhere. Okay, once you're there, take your, let's read this again, 5/16 wrench, make sure they're snug. Got the bolts tight. Let's check this one last time. Here, there. We're good to go. Okay, our next step is going to be put our fan on. Same way, the flat goes up. Find your keyway. Okay, put it on. Make sure it spins. Okay. Our last part on the body of the motor is our top cap. Sets up here. And this would have had 4 short screws. You may or may not have had little star washers to go with them, or lock-in washers. Okay, well, this is a nice learning lesson. See how these are not tight? So I will need to take these back off and put a washer underneath one of these because they just don't tighten down enough, which is extremely common on this. I will do this later. Our last thing we're going to do on this motor is we're going to put our side cover back on. Run your wires through. All right, there we go. We have it together. Again, I will put these on after this video is over, but we have now reassembled a 1.5 horsepower variable speed motor for a Bridgeport. So if you have any questions, let us know. And as always, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.